grabbed myself a hacksaw, and boy did I go to town. And I put the bike together, I got on the bicycle, I sat on it one time, I got down in the drops, and I said to myself, oh lordy, I made a big mistake here. What was my mistake? I cut the steer tube dramatically too short. What's up everybody, it's Jaryn from Berkshire Bike and Board, and this is a Cervelo Aspero 5. Let's get into it here. I apologize for being tired. We're in the middle of the Festive 500, which is one of my favorite bicycle events of the season. I also apologize for my dirty bicycle because I have two very, very small superstitions that I carry through the Festive 500. Number one is that I do not wash my kit the entire time. No comment. Number two is that besides lubing my chain, I do not wash my bike the entire time. Slightly strange, we've all got them. So, moving on. Aspero 5. This whole video is going to be about the custom build process and how it's supposed to go and how I threw out all those directions and did it my own way and how it ended in a complete disaster. So if you're going to build a custom bike, here's the process. Number one, get a bike fit. Get a bike fit, get a bike fit. Number two, spec out the bike. Number three, check the compatibility of the parts that you've spec'd your potential custom build to be. Number four, respec the bike after you've confirmed compatibility. Number five, build the bike. Ideally, have a professional mechanic build the bike. I work at a bike shop. I am not a bike fitter, a bike part specker, a professional mechanic, a bike compatibility checker. I'm bad at all this stuff, and I should have consulted the pros that work right over there, but c'est la vie. So let's start with the name, Aspero 5, because I love names of bicycles. Aspero essentially translates to rough, which essentially translates into my process of putting this bike together. Now, realistically, I believe they chose that name because it's a bike that's spec'd out to be ridden on rough roads. It's their race gravel bike at the end of the day. But realistically, it's just been a little nagging niggle in the back of my brain throughout the entire process of I was cursed from the get-go. My fault. Originally, the concept for this bicycle was gonna be a race gravel bike for myself. Now, was I gonna do a lot of races? Not exactly sure, but I was getting to the end of summer with some fitness and thinking to myself, I'll do some cyclocross races this year. But I also like to hit some jumps and do some, manuals and whoop-de-doos and wheelies on our Wednesday night gravel rides. So I thought, I'm gonna build out a racy gravel bike that still has some flexibility to do tricks and skids and bunny hops and hoopty-das. And what I decided is that this was gonna be a really good platform for that because it was a race geometry, but I had some clearance for some big tires, and I could also put a dropper post on it. So, dropper post. That's where the issues start. I am obsessed with Shimano Di2. That group set I think is the best group set ever. If I was gonna narrow it down even further, I would say Shimano Di2 12-speed 5034, 1134 in the back is I could run that on every single bike for the rest of my life and be happy. So I was really obsessed with the idea of running that group set on this bike. Now, if I took any time to check Cervelo's website and read the big, not so fine print that says not compatible with the new 12-speed Di2, I would have not spec'd out this group set because it doesn't fit. It doesn't even get close to fitting. Now, close to fitting, there's two, maybe 3 points where it really becomes an issue. Number one, this chain ring right here essentially is hitting the frame right now, right here. That's an issue for a lot of reasons, especially because if I drop my chain, which has happened on a ride, I can't get the chain out. It's stuck in there and forever until I either break the chain, which I did on a ride to get it out, or take the crankset off. That's failure point number one. Again, my fault. Failure point number two. This little tiny Di2 cable routes up through the frame and then it's supposed to kind of wrap around the derailleur and go into its little port there. Unfortunately, because I didn't read the fine print again, this bike technically will fit like a 38 millimeter tire, 40 depending on the group set, but it basically says if you're gonna run a version of Di2 with a front derailleur, an electronic front derailleur, it's only gonna take a 38. That's a 42 millimeter tire, which is again, rubbing on the front derailleur and really rubbing on the cable of the front derailleur. Literally rubbing, even though we have it kind of jimmied in there in a special way, it's still rubbing. So my front derailleur cable is essentially getting worn down all the time while I'm riding. Not ideal. Again, could have been prevented. So anyhow, this is a 5034 Shimano Di2 group set on the front, even though it has no business being there. As we go back to the original intention of the bicycle, I wanted the SRAM reverb axis dropper post on there because I think it is the pinnacle of, the bee's knees when it comes to gravel riding. Why? Two reasons. Number one, I can press two little buttons and have my seat post go down, and I can press them again and my seat post will electronically come back up. That is amazing in theory. The other thing that I think is forgotten about a lot is that if I just tap those two buttons, the seat post will drop down, a half a centimeter, and it turns into a suspension seat post, which is amazing. And I thought to myself, okay, aggressive racy geometry, but if the seat post is down a bit, I'll have the clearance to do perfectly flat tabletops off of a jump if I wanted to. That's an exaggeration, but you get my point. We had done some research, and when I say some research, I basically did none and kind of winged it. And I ordered the seat post, and I ordered the little SRAM blip buttons to control the seat post, because again, you can't run a SRAM reverb through Shimano Di2. Not yet, at least. I build the bike up, the bars aren't wrapped, but I'm starting to get the bike together, and I'm realizing that I've got a few major issues. Number one, this Shimano Di2 group set is built to have the battery be recessed in the frame, right? Male, female, inside there, it's supposed to all fit nice and cozy. When you have a SRAM reverb dropper post on this bicycle, there's nowhere for the battery to go. So when I first was kind of putting the parts together dry, if you will, my seat post ended about here, and the battery doesn't even fit in this cutout of the frame here. So I could only get my seat post like that far in the frame, which was not going to work because the dropper, the minimum length was like 12, was sitting me up here. Not great. This is when I really started to get frustrated and was like, I should have done way more research when I built this bicycle. I learned that now. Please take my wisdom and do some research before you build your own custom bicycle. But I'm going to keep on plowing through this video just like I kept plowing through this build, because I did come out with a fairly decent finished product. So the battery thing doesn't work. I have nowhere to put the Di2 battery. So I think to myself, okay, I can probably run the Di2 battery up here or something. I could get a longer cable and lodge it in the frame, whatever, because I was still dead set on getting the dropper post to work. I install the blips here on the handlebars, down here in the drops. We wrap the handlebars up really nicely. I was under the impression that I could get the junction box, which is a rear derailleur in SRAM's case, to pair the blips to the rear derailleur, and then I could pair the rear derailleur to this seat post, the rear derailleur on another bike, and then once it's paired, it would all work and I would not have to have that other bike next to me. That's not true. That's not even close to being true. If you want to run a dropper seat post, you need the derailleur, the rear derailleur, which is the brain of the SRAM axis system, on the bike all the time. We ordered the junction box. If someone's going to comment, oh, if you get this junction box, yada yada, it can work as a brain. Doesn't work. Tried it, called SRAM 1,000 times. There's absolutely no way to make a SRAM dropper seat post work with just the dropper post and the blips. It's not a thing. I learned that the hard way. So I gave up on the dropper post. I'm putting the bike together. I start to get really frustrated with the Di2 compatibility because, again, this frame is not spec'd for the new 12-speed Di2. The new Aspero 5 is, but this was the one from like last year and they hadn't made the big change yet. All the ports, there's all these little things that go in the ports so the cables fit snug, yada, yada, yada. It's all for like either mechanical cables or the old Di2, so there's just clearance in mind because it's got a little Di2 cable going through it. So it was a bit of a nightmare, but I got it pulled together. And here's where I really made the fateful mistake of not getting a fit, not measuring twice and cutting once, and I am going to get ripped to smithereens about this, but basically, as a Jerry home mechanic at absolute best, I was putting this all together and I got to the steer tube and I thought, okay, I'm 33 years old, I like to go pretty fast on my bicycle, I'm gonna really slam this baby and get out there and blow everybody's doors off. I measured once, not twice. I put the thing in a vise, I grabbed myself a hacksaw, and boy did I go to town. And I put the bike together, I got on the bicycle, I sat on it one time, I got down in the drops, and I said to myself, oh lordy, I made a big mistake here. What was my mistake? I cut the steer tube dramatically too short. It is the most uncomfortable I've ever been on a bicycle in my entire life. And this week in particular, I have to ride it 310 miles. So as you can imagine, my arms, my wrists, like my whole upper body. My back is fine because I'm young, but there's so much pressure on my hands and my arms that it feels like my fingers are gonna fall off. So, in conclusion, is this an amazing bike? Actually, it's a pretty swanky bicycle and I'm getting used to it, but I need to get rid of it because it doesn't fit me at the end of the day. So it'll be for sale for someone else to buy who's maybe a little bit shorter than me. Not the whole bike, but I'll probably sell the frame set. If you want the frame set, leave a comment in the YouTube video, please. Oh man, I gotta complain about one other stupid mistake I made. So, this is a bike shop. We get really good, sometimes, a lot of times, free products to test or because we have a relationship with manufacturers. Long story short, I don't pay much for bike stuff. But there's these swanky tires out on the internet by some internet guy, ultra romance, cut off jean wearing hipster. And I thought to myself, man, this kind of rose colored pink with some gray tires is gonna look, oh, it's gonna look so good. And I couldn't help myself and I paid full price for these Ultra Dynamico tires. And my question is, has anyone tested these goddamn tires? They're awful. What do I mean by awful? Well, they're probably great for a lot of things, like riding on nice, smooth gravel roads in the summertime. I made the mistake because it is New England, it is the fall, and it is just nasty out here right now. And these knobbies on these tires are so freaking close together that they cake up with mud and dirt, and then it turns into a slick, a heavy slick at the end of the day. So I've also gotten like 3 flats in them and had to puncture them. And if I just stuck with my cheap, tried and true Pan-Racer 42mm Gravel Kings, oh man, I'd be much happier. But you'll live and you'll learn. They're actually swanky looking tires. I'm just kind of grouchy because I paid full price for them. That's my bike check. It's not much of a bike check. It's more of a rant about how much effort should go into building and speccing out a custom bicycle, because it's not easy and it should be left to the professionals. So, with all that said, this is how you spec out a custom bicycle. First, you get a fit, or you make sure you really have taken your measurements correctly. Number 2, you spec out the bike with the parts you think you want to go on the bike and you think are gonna work. Number 3, you consult with a professional, ideally Levi Brown, because he's really good at it, and make sure that your compatibility is completely dead on. Number 4, you confirm your compatibility and respec your bike for the things that don't work so you know that everything's gonna fit nice and happily. Number 5, you don't let me build your bicycle because I'm a horrible bike mechanic at best.
He runs 3 bike shops, but he can't put his own rear wheel on his bike.
Because I'm impatient. So, that's my video about my beautiful Cervelo Aspero 5 that I'm actually starting to like now and put a lot of miles on, but I needed to get that out in the world. It's been weighing on me for a few months now, and I'm gonna do probably like a blog style video, late winter, early spring, about the custom build process where I start correctly and take you through the whole entire process, and we do it with professionals. It's gonna be really fun, but this was a little bit of an intro to that because this one's really bad. So, if you like this kind of content, wait around for that video. We'll be starting in a couple months, and yeah, like I always say, round up for distance, round up for time. Thanks for watching.